Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. It's day 15 and it's October 21st. And I have had a really hard time in the last few days. And I found it very validating to hear Maria Shriver say that exact thing today in the town hall with Kamala and with Lynn Cheney. It was really good. If you haven't heard it, it was like maybe the best, like real conversation because it was just two really smart women, one of whom I don't agree with all the time, but ever, let's just be truthful, ever. But Maria Shriver leading it, and the discussion was just normal. It was so normal. Even in disagreeing, it was just normal. There just used to be a time in our country where people could have different ideas and still hang out together and go have a drink or happy hour or whatever. And it's so what happened this week? I'm having two things going on. One, I'm having my daughter just like said it's PTSD. I'm having so many flashbacks of my mom dying. It's been exactly 6 months, so I think something is up. Also, I think that the politics has really gotten to me, and it's funny because a troll called it out, and I had to agree. He was right. I was way too engaged, just way too engaged. I stopped myself, and a part of it was I think I was trying to escape the thoughts of my mom. So there you go. It was kind of the perfect storm. But it's true this weekend because also validating me is several people who are very active in trying to get different points of view out there and share ways to look at things, new ways to look at things. And that's what I hope I have for you today. Um, is that the trolls and the bots. And I particularly use Twitter. I love my Twitter because I curated it really well. And I have a lot of journalists, I have a lot of medical people, I have a lot of climate scientists. Like I have really great people who break early news. Like there's a bunch of crap going on right now with H1, no, eight, I'm gonna get it wrong. H1N51. I forget it's the bird flu, but it's in cattle now. And we have a problem in California where cattle is being left by the road, which is how they used to render dead cows, is that the truck comes and picks up the dead animals that can't be eaten because they rotted or whatever. Just, imagine cows die. But these cows are dying from this very lethal virus and they're not managing it well. So there's a lot happening, and that's the kind of stuff I like to know about. And I've decided I'm going to keep podcasting after the election, but I'll probably do it twice a week. And my commitment to you and to me is that I want to bring up different ways to think about things. And that's how I got to today's podcast. I realized there's if I need to be a voice, and I have quite a few followers. Like, thank you guys very much. I'm very uh flattered. Flatter's not the word. I'm like encouraged. You encourage me. So you are encouraging my bad behavior. But my promise to you and the promise to myself is we both need to be learning something when I'm sharing, when I'm podcasting. And it needs to open up for you a way to think about something, maybe in a way you never thought about it today, which is what I'm hoping to do today, or just to bring something to your attention that because we live in such a noisy world, you may be missing. And I'm going to always err on the things an error, ERR, error, make an error. If I err, it's going to be on caring about us too much. So you might find that I'm over passionate, kind of a Jen Carroll trait. So that could happen, but it doesn't matter because if you listen and just get ideas and start thinking about things, that's all I care about. And frankly, I've got folks listening in different parts of the world. So I would like to see if there's some connections as I start to go forward in this podcast, that there might be some things where we have in common, especially with the people that are following me, which is interesting. It's Australia, Canada, the UK, actually Europe, but Western Europe, not particularly Eastern Europe, Western Europe. And now I've seen some folks from Japan, which of course they are true crime fans too. And so I won't be going down a crime per se, not crime, although I always end up thinking about that. That's always part of my values. Is I care about our prison system. I think it's whack. I care about the things that we're doing to people. I think what's happening in Palestine and everywhere else in the Mideast is ruining whole generations of humans they're never going to want to work together because quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be cooperative after I've been damaged. So I'm going to err on the side of pro-human, pro-justice, pro-social justice, those kinds of things. And I'm not going to tackle topics that are way out of my league. So, and you may already think I have. So you can decide. My whole thing is that we're all learning together. And I appreciate very much your following me. And I will commit to 2 podcasts a week, which will probably be more thoughtful because I don't have to go as fast. And Probably a little bit longer. Sorry. Uh, the only people I talk to in school. I'm just kidding. I just want to make sure I do a really good job. That's my thing, is that for me, this is a really good job. And I will try to always make sure I have good content that works on YouTube or audio only, depending on your choices. So, and I generally always have a blog because I start with writing. So I can't not have a blog. I do not, I'm going to say, don't freeball it, baby, because I will make a mistake. I have the improv mouth happens every once in a while. So this is why I come to this sober and not demure. No, I'm never demure, but I show up sober because I don't need to let my mouth slip, and it already does slip. So speaking of mouth slips, what I wanted to talk about today, I was thinking there's so much noise. There's so much noise. Like Trump was exceptionally wacky this weekend. I'm so pissed. I had absolutely zero thoughts about Arnold Palmer. My first thought is always, he's a golfer my dad used to watch because my dad was totally into golf. And the second one is, I love ordering an Arnold Palmer. It's like my perfect drink because they do free refills. They're super satisfying. It's not either, both flavors aren't too strong. It's like ordering an acai at Starbucks with black tea, kind of counterbalances. Very good. Yeah, my favorite drink. But anyway, and you can always buy me a Starbucks like that. You ever want to send me a Starbucks, I will take it, because that's one way I get out of the house. But I generally don't go there because I'm living cheap right now. So anywho, the idea of what you say and what you do and how you go out, like I'm pissed that Arnold Palmer is ruined. But there were other things that happened this weekend. Like he swore, and ironic coming from me, I know, because I use profanity all the time, but I also mark my content for adults only. So what I'm saying is that to call Kamala a shit vice president is interesting, but we're going to talk about why I think he made that choice. So it was a noisy, chaotic. Oh, I'm sorry. There was another huge thing that happened. And this is what really got me down, I think. What Elon's doing. And I know every Democrat out there right now has lost their mind over this because it is so fundamental to how we grew up, is that you don't buy votes. We couldn't buy votes. You were not allowed to hand out candy at our school when you were running for student council. You could only hand out flyers because they said anything more is buying votes. And they taught us that in like third grade. So I don't know what's happened. I know we're throwing out books and everything, and school's all going to be homeschool. And then we're all just going to believe that, I don't know, it's going to lead to, but it doesn't matter because giant hurricanes will wipe us all out, right? Not cynical at all, Jen, not cynical. So this weekend was chaos, and having Elon get it in this twisted, effed up way that to everyone else on the planet seems illegal, and just craven. There's not even words for what these behaviors are anymore. But to see that man run around throwing checks at people, I hope tons of Democrats signed up. Just go frickin' law. I just hope that's what you did. But okay. So I started to think about what can I bring to the table today and talk about that would be different and not something you'd already heard. And so I decided to take a look because of rhetoric. And I was thinking, my first thought when Trump, which day was it? There was one day Trump had a statement, and I thought, what made him, what is in his mind that he pulled that out? And it actually is interesting. It's the Arnold Palmer one. That's what it was, because I thought, why did he go there? Like, that's just, of all the things you could say about a man who basically lived a terrific life, for everything I understand about him, he was generous. Arnold Palmer was like just a good guy. Right place, right time, everything worked, good for him. Everything I know about the man, not controversy. It's just not controversial. So why is Trump talking about him? And then, of all things, why does Trump focus on one thing in particular and like draws it out? Like he just can't just tell the story. He's in the locker room in his head. He is, I'm sure he wasn't in the locker room. He probably doesn't go in there, but he's in that, it's probably the bar. He's in the bar with the golfers. That was always a place I was a kid. I wasn't allowed in the bar, but the bar was like where the men all hung out after golfing. 19th hole, as it were, right? Where they get drunk and then they drive you home. That's what I always laughed about. I'm like, Mom, he literally drinks at the golf course and drives us home. Whatever. Take your risks, take your chances, run your risk, take your chances, whatever it is. We didn't die. But what is it that makes him pull these words? So I went and looked, and I was thinking about this rhetorical theory that I learned at Davis. And so let me just get through this, because this will, it's organized. If I keep babbling, I'm going to give the whole thing away. So I'm going to start first with this idea of disinhibition. We've talked about it before. It has to do with getting older and losing control over what you say. So you don't lose control over, like, you just don't talk to well, if you're me, you talk to everybody, because that's a disinhibited extrovert. But in this case, disinhibition means that where you would normally, like I mentioned, there's one word I have in my lexicon that I don't know why it's there, but I need to get it out because I'm afraid I'm going to say it when I'm an old person. So I'm trying everything in my power to get rid of that word out of my lexicon. In this case, the disinhibition comes from the brain's less able to hold back thoughts that we normally stop ourselves from saying because they're inappropriate or offensive. Of course, this isn't true for MAGAs. They can now say everything they want that's inappropriate or offensive. But in this case, disinhibition, there is actually protocol for being a political candidate, and you don't go out and just start dropping the S-bombs and F-bombs and all these vulgarities. There is a certain comportment and rules of engagement, yes, is what you want to say. So as you get older, and I think this is one of the reasons Biden is speaking more slowly, because he knows that it's harder to prevent yourself from saying something whack, because it's just from the memories, right? So what does it look like? What do you look for when you're seeing somebody with disinhibition? And this isn't why he's making the word choices he's making. This is, to me, why he can't stop himself from making these word choices. The disinhibition often becomes noticeable around age 65. Oh, I have just a short time to go. Maybe I'm an early adopter. It can vary from person to person, and it's a broader set of changes that can come with it, that come with aging and how people, and affects how people communicate. So this is it. So here's the whole package. And if you already are experiencing some of these things, you have my deepest sympathies, because I too have flashes of moments. One of them is word finding difficulties. And this is all in the blog. So if you ever want to go back and consult this, it's all right here. And then I have the links to where I got this stuff from. So word finding difficulties. Older adults struggle to find the right words, often using simpler terms or familiar phrases. So this is interesting because we know Trump's language is now at a 4th grade level. There's a link to the article in there, but they've looked at the words he uses and how he uses them. And I think I talked to you guys about the flesh test. You can really kind of tell where people's levels are. In fact, when I write, I try to write, I think I mentioned this, to the 8th to 10th grade level, because I want to hit the broadest audience I can. And I know those of you who need more will read the links, and those of that you don't, but want to just get the notion, you got it. So I try to balance that, but that's like for marketing. I've had to learn to be that kind of content provider, because in marketing, we have to change the nature of the content. You also find when there's disinhibition, there's a shorter attention span. And this, I think, is like rampant with Trump. He doesn't seem to have any attention span whatsoever. People may have difficulty focusing or staying on topic. They might jump from one idea to another, reflecting reduced mental flexibility. So this isn't the weave, although he's using the weave. It could be that he's having a short attention span, but I think he's also having some of these other symptoms. So it's like anything, when you start to get complex in your thoughts, you can create pathways for yourself of communication. You can't go down all the paths. There's too many. That's what I often see him doing. He just kind of raises a lot of issues and can't go down all the paths. So there's the shorter attention span, increased impulsivity. So disinhibition can also lead to saying things impulsively without considering whether they're offensive, exaggerated, or inappropriate. Trump's had this for a long time. He says stuff all the time that doesn't make any sense in the context he's in, or that's just bonkers. That just doesn't make sense, period. And then there's difficulty with complex language. Trump's never been a winner when it comes to language. Anyway, he's not a good reader. He's really bad at, according to Noel Castler and several people from the White House as well, he cannot do teleprompters. He's really bad at cards. He's not able to hold a lot of thoughts in his head at once. So you could imagine it now that he's gotten older, it's become even more simplistic. It's probably why I saw an article today where Trump really answers questions in 1 of 3 ways: borders and blame the migrants. Kamala is unqualified, sucks, is stupid, other bad words to describe her. And the third is FEMA's growing up. That's all Trump talks about. That's it. And there's one more. The enemy within. The enemy within, which is wholly reflexive on his personal perception. I have a feeling, well, let's get down to that section. Okay. So he has And then the last thing he has is any person that's starting to age has memory lapses. Hello, that's the first thing to go, by the way, just memory lapses and trying to find the word. Yep, those are the worst ones. I can attest to it. Those are the first to go. These changes can all contribute to the shift to communication style in aging adults. It's one of the reasons why, and I love my seniors. Like, I just love seniors. I always have. I think I got trained on seniors really at a very young age. And so they became important in my heart. But I also learned how to talk with seniors. And seniors like to tell a lot of stories. And you got to listen. You have to give them time to talk. They don't talk as fast as younger people. They just don't. It's harder to pull the cognition. So with an older person, you're there to have an experience. Relax and lean in, enjoy it. Unless it's a Trump older person, I understand. They might lose your mind. Okay, so Trump is hitting all the marks with those facts. He just hits them. He has all the symptoms. And the cluster of symptoms is often associated with age-related cognitive decline. That's just what we all have. Now, he might have additional things, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to diagnose him. But this is what I think I feel very comfortable in saying, that he has age-related cognitive decline. And when it actually becomes something that is more pronounced, it's called mild cognitive impairment. And it sounds like there's a stage between normal age-related changes and more serious conditions like dementia. So that's what you do in the middle, right? You have something called mild cognitive impairment, but I actually think he has much more severe cognitive impairment. Again, I defer to the doctors on that. So if they become more severe, there's two types. And this is, I've heard of this. First one is what psychiatrists on Twitter have said, frontotemporal dementia. That's it starts with behavior and language disinhibition, impulsivity, and difficulties with word recall. So it's frontotemporal dementia. It's where your brain doesn't remember things anymore. You can't go fetch. It's just like it's gotten, it needs a lube job, right? The signals aren't firing like they used to. This is why we talk about brain health, because if you can keep those synapse connections firing, it really helps. That's why everybody wants Sudoku. I don't, not a Sudoku person, but I crochet and I crochet hard stuff. So there you go. And still, these symptoms don't always mean this is a serious condition. It can be part of normal aging, but the man is almost 80 years old. So what are we talking about here? He's old. I mean, that's old, especially when you haven't led the cleanest life, and he has not. Your lifestyle really starts to show up as you start to get older. So here's the deal. I started learning about this thing called semantics and retrieval at UC Davis in 1980. That's what I was there studying rhetoric. And the semantic memory retrieval, what fascinated me, it's the ability to recall words readily available in a person's memory. And let me give you like a street version. And what I'm going to give you here in the street version, because the scientists really go into this. I mean, it's deep. I started looking at some of these studies and I'm like, I can't represent all this because this research since 1980, my God, that's 40 years later, right? The research is amazing. But I was studying with this professor named Dr. Michael Motley, and he has extensively researched this. He's researched language production and cognitive processes. And that's what he was teaching us then in 1980. He, of course, spent 40 more years studying it. He was a professor at Davis, but he was also a severe racist and a Texan. So such a racist. But while he was a horrible professor, he really was. I mean, the head of the department, when we proved the racism, the department said, you're passing, and it's unacceptable. But the work he does fascinate me. So here's the deal. He was even just cited recently in the BBC. It's only a matter of time. His research shows it's only a matter of time before the truth slips out. When we're thinking about something, we're priming the relevant words before they're prepared to be spoken in case we need them. This is what I remember so good. It's how we get in our heads. So somehow you take this thing as prep. So this is you prepping before a Zoom meeting, right? You kind of have those words in your head. You know, we're going to talk about, you're oriented. And when you get caught is when you let your mind wander, and now you're thinking about the game on Sunday. You got to come back and be back in that meeting and be present, because you need to have those words available that you're going to use. But with the words that we choose are what reveals us. And when you add a layer of disinhibition to that, what you semantically retrieve can be quite revealing. Motley studied slips of the tongue, not tips of the tongue, offering a window into understanding how language is processed and retrieved in the brain. These verbal errors known as, do you know what they are? Freudian slips occur when an unintended word is spoken, revealing underlying thoughts or feelings. Motley's investigations into these phenomena have shed light on the intricate workings of semantic memory, word memory, right? The system responsible for storing and retrieving general word knowledge. I always talk about the databases in our brain, so it has to go fetch the words we need, including words, meanings, and concepts. Yep, you can't just have the word. You got to know what it means. You got to know what it's about, because, I mean, this is, sorry, brief aside, but this is what blows my mind with language acquisition in children, because they come in and they not only learn the words, but they learn what it's about and what it has to do with and what it reveals. And it's really interesting. So when we have a Freudian slip, it occurs when an unintended word is spoken, revealing underlying thoughts or feelings. So think about that. It's when he says the truth will slip out. If it's something really bugging you, it will. Unless you can put it away totally and never speak of it again, it will slip out. Motley's investigations into these phenomena have shed light on the intricate workings of semantic memory, the system responsible for storing and retrieving the knowledge, including how slips result from the complex interplay between different memory systems and cognitive processes. So get that there's all these systems working in our brain to help us have language and comprehension and functioning and data storage, so you can remember things and learn things and acquire new knowledge. All that's happening, different things. Overlay that with frontotemporal, what did I call it? Dementia. Once things aren't, it's like everything in there doesn't have the proper connection. So now your brain is trying to find things that it used to have stored, but doesn't know what it is anymore. It's basically the metaphor of how things work in your house when you're over 60 and you can't find the scissors. Your brain is doing the same thing to try to find the words that you want versus the words you're going to use. So our brains retrieve words based on recent experiences or deep memories. And this, I always laugh at this one because this my mom always called orchard supply, you know, where you go get plants and household repair items, Lumber City, because in Ventura, where we grew up, it was Lumber City. We didn't have an orchard back then, or down there in Southern California, Ventura, we had Lumber City. And so all of a sudden, and we had Save On, which was our CVS. So my mom would just say Lumber City or Save On in her later years, and I know exactly what she was talking about. I knew which store she meant here and what she wanted me to go fetch for her or keep an eye out for or whatever. It's going back to those old memories. Like, it just comes out of your mouth before you get there, right? It just comes out. That's what was so funny about it. And her disinhibition made it so she couldn't stop herself. Like, sometimes she goes, I knew it. If you ever had a parent goes, I knew it, dang it, dang it, dang it. Like that kind of thing. That's it. That's when the disinhibition let them down. And so, and I knew that this was I know this is gonna happen to me. And the other day I actually called one of my cats an old name from one of my early cats. And I did then admit to Katie that I will be calling all my future cats by the two names of my first two cats, so I never screw up. I never know. I'm a crazy guy now. So let's go into some examples of the choices that Trump's making and what that might reveal about him. The first one is his unfiltered profanity. So he is increasing his use of profanity, including calling Kamala a shit vice president, and it's rooted in a combination of semantic memory retrieval and disinhibition. So two things are at play, right? I can't find my right words and I can't stop myself. Those are the two things in play. I can't find what I mean. So, but the thing is, when you talk about retrieval and Freudian, this is what makes this interesting now. The term isn't just an impulsive outburst. It's tied to his intense feelings about Mike Pence's vice presidency and his actions after the 2020 election. He started saying shit vice president a long time ago. That's where he started. He hates vice presidents. I don't know about you, but I see him have contempt for JD. I don't think he's figured out that JD is going to replace him part yet. I just don't think Trump tunes into noise that's not about him. But I do think he can't stand JD. Cannot stand him. He is not the kind of guy Trump would like for so many reasons. So in this case, when he's calling Kamala Harris a shit vice president, I believe that retrieval is highly associated with Mike Pence, and he perceived Mike's betrayal made him made shit a poor descriptor in Trump's mind, so it became the default when describing vice presidents, especially those he's running against. And as Trump perseverates on addressing the anger associated with Pence, the term remains close to his surface, making it more likely to be retrieved spontaneously. Pence is up a lot for him. Biden is up a lot for him. Sorry, now I sound like I'm a therapist. What's up for you? But if you listen to what Trump kind of perseverates on, it's those injustices that he can't get over. He just can't get over January 6th. And what a peaceful, loving day that was. Like, that's just, look at his word retrieval on that. It's bonkers because there's no peace and there was no love. None of those things happened, but he did say we didn't have guns, but the other side did, and the other side was America. So I'm saying this is interesting. If you add disinhibition to his anger towards Pence, it's his control is just diminishing, and his ability to filter this out is diminishing, and this reduced inhibition combined with his thinking about it all the time makes it easy for him to be incredibly offensive during his speeches right now, as he's getting more and more exhausted and worn down, and maybe he knows he's going to lose. We put sexual references. So he has this big thing at the rally where he made a crude joke about Arnold Palmer's anatomy, which is terrible. And the explicit language isn't all that new, but Trump's often focused on machismo and success and sexual bravado. And he also knows he hasn't, we know that he has intense shame over his small penis. I mean, Stormy Daniels came out and told everyone, went on talk shows, everything. It's in the zeitgeist, as I call it. So over time, these themes have been core to his self-concept, and making sexual references makes it readily accessible for him. He thinks about, I'm not going to say he thinks about sex a lot, because I'm not really sure he does think about sex. He thinks about objectification of women a lot. He's obsessed with objectifying women. So it doesn't surprise me that he would objectify male genitalia. Personally think he's bi. He's interested in men, but that's like my personal thing. I'll just sit over here in the crazy corner and have myself a crazy snack. Okay, moving on. So he's this is about him. It's always about him, right? Disinhibition is lowering his social filters, and he's referencing sex and exploits and prowess a little more commonly. Although the Arnold Palmer was just over the top, like so bad. And this really is a result of his inability to restrain himself. There's also these things that the conversations now talked about, which is the enemy from within, which is interesting that he pulled that reference. My hypothesis is the enemy from within is actually how Tucker, Putin, Trump, the Heritage Foundation, Miller, the people that surround Trump, and frankly Netanyahu at this point, they all are obsessed with this enemy from within. And the interesting part is that it's them. But the way you make sure it's not about you is you project it onto your enemy. So if you want, you project that onto the other side. So it's a bit of projection there, but the reason I'm interested in his semantic retrieval is that he's picked a phrase that I believe other people are using, and that tells me he's hearing it from someone, because Trump is nothing if not unable to have an original thought. I don't mean a demented thought. He can have a demented thought, but he doesn't have original thoughts. I mean, he doesn't have plans or policies, right? He's not a deep thinker. He's the suit that's in front that's, trying to get the votes, but he's not a thinker. So when he's talking about the enemy within, I fully believe that people are talking to him about that. And that reveals to us what's going on inside the campaign, and potentially with people he's working with in other countries, which we shouldn't be doing, but nobody seems to give a flying in the what. And then finally, there's the crude labeling and attacks. Terms like crooked and crazy and radical, they're not just insults. They reflect Trump's preoccupations and insecurities. So he uses crooked because he's crooked. He uses crazy because he's crazy. He uses radical because the ideas from his side are radical. They're all radical. That's the irony. That's every time he talks and tries to tell it about someone else, it's about him. It's about him. And so his projection and fears as being perceived as corrupt is why he uses the words about others. All the corruption talk is about Trump. There's idiots, bots on Twitter that saying Kamala is uneducated, and oh God, well, there's another one today. I'm just like, this is not What do you even talk? Oh, slept her way to the top. I'm sorry. That's what I love. Slept her way to the top because, yeah, that's how we're doing president. Okay. We're just banging our way to freedom. In fact, there's so many of us women have slept our way to the top. We're running Silicon Valley right now. We're running corporate. Do you see how stupid this is, by the way? Thank you. All right. So here's where we go. What to look for and why it matters. So his language is providing indicators of cognitive decline, but he's also Freudian slipping, right? He's telling us what to pay attention to. He's going to use familiar terms repeatedly, like crooked or shit or rude sexual references. He thinks now he's got a lot of play off the Arnold Palmer thing. And remember, he only cares about clicks and ratings. He doesn't care about if it's appropriate or not. I'm not even sure he cares if it goes over well, because I wouldn't have gone to McDonald's if I thought it through. If he cared about it going over well. What an awful, awful way to humiliate all of us who worked in fast food, to go there and do cosplay. Like, ugh. Okay. He's going to use profanity and crude jokes as he gets more and more relaxed and doesn't give any you-know-whats. So we've got 2 more weeks of grossness. He's going to use simplified language and labeling. And I think he just did that today in North Carolina, where the thing I read most about was how he blocked all the roads to go have a stump speech in Asheville where nobody wanted him. And here we are with people who can't get what they need, who are still trying to recover from a crisis. And he goes there and speaks with his simplified language and labeling, where everything is dumbed down to the language of a 4th grader. It's important to notice this for a presidential candidate, because cognitive decline is not something we want somebody that's going to be making key decisions for our country. And I know they're going to replace him right away. They're going to put in JD, but I'm trying to prevent the Republicans from winning it. We are freaked out. It is a lot. There's no explanation for Trump other than, frankly, I feel like I was going to say cheating, but I'm not going to say cheating, because I do believe the voting part is right, but I don't like gerrymandering. I feel like that's cheating. I feel like the electoral college is cheating at this point. It just should be a popular vote, and we should be over the shit, because the fact of the matter is, if we could get on with it, half of Trump's vote, MAGAs wouldn't even show up at the polls. They just wouldn't. If this was really not this kind of environment, they would not be motivated to vote for him. It's not that exciting. And when they go to get excited about him, I mean, the people who really get excited about him, it's not that big of a group, folks. It's just not that big. So we don't want him making those personal decisions, and we don't want it to be just about his rhetoric, but I want you to pay attention to the decline. And every time he uses a word for you that goes, huh, think about the huh. Is he self-reporting? Did he just slip because all the truth's come out? Is he flailing around because he doesn't know what to do, so he's making up words? Start to think about that. I know we all say he's just when his lips moves, he's lying, but I believe we can learn much more. I think we pay attention to the words he does choose or leak out, and then chase those, because that's where he's feeling most vulnerable or telling us a secret. And the secret could help us understand what's really going. Thank you for listening today. I will be back probably in a couple of days with my next podcast, and we'll take a look at what's going on. And I'm going to have Steve Luchman back one more time. I want to talk about this, that poly market, the place where Americans aren't allowed to gamble, but they are on our election, which is just another what the hell kind of thing going on. So I want to talk to him about poly market, and I want to talk to him about polling now that we're getting close, because we're going to get close. So stand by for that as well. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you following me. Leave a like or share is what I really would appreciate. Share this with somebody who might be interested. Thank you so much.